Here's another update on my Wiley Coyote project, and I'm excited about this one because I'm finally starting to transform this V6 2009 Mustang into a 5-liter GT clone. Up to now, I've just been stripping parts off this car here, and also this 2014, taking the engine out and other parts off of here. But this last couple of days, I've been installing parts from the GT into this V6 body. Mainly all the components up front here, steering, brakes, suspension, things like that. Originally, I was going to take the entire K-member out of this GT and move it into the Mustang. I thought that might be easier than just swapping over components from this car. But since it was in a fairly significant front end accident, you can see the front frame rails, the way they're bent. I did find some welds on this front cross member that were torn a little bit. I thought there might be a possibility that that K member might have been tweaked as well. So I just left the K member from the V6 car. As far as I can tell, lower control arms and everything seem to be identical. So I don't think I would have gained anything performance-wise making the swap. So I just swapped over the struts, larger brakes from the GT car, brake lines, all that type of stuff, and moved the old V6 components back onto this chassis just so I can keep this as a roller and get it out of the shop later on. I was going to leave the sway bar in the V6 car as well. I checked them, they're about the same diameter between the GT and the V6, but I'm glad I did swap it over. When I pulled it out, I noticed the V6 sway bar was considerably heavier than the sway bar that came out of this GT. And it's exactly the opposite of what I would have expected if there was a difference. There's the same diameter, but different weight. I don't know if that's because the spring rates are different, and it's a firmer spring on the GT, and that's why the sway bar is lighter, or if the material is different and it's actually a firmer sway bar even though it is lighter. If anyone knows, please let me know. I'm curious. Behind the sway bar there, you can see electric power steering. That's also from the GT car. That fit in there good. I had to do some very minor grinding on the K member just to get so I could line up the bolt holes on it, but well, maybe only a 1/16 of an inch. I had to take off lower part of the K member there to make it all work, so it was a pretty minor modification there. The V6 car originally had this hydraulic power steering, and when I pulled it out, I noticed a leak in one of the seals here, so no matter what, that would have had to be changed out. So it worked out good. Now I've got electric power steering in here. ABS module is different on the GT car, the newer GT car. I think the traction control system is a lot more advanced in this 2014 than what it was in the 2009. So I swapped that over. The unit's sitting in a slightly different location, so the old brake lines didn't work either, so I swapped out all the brake lines. Even swapped out the master cylinder and everything related to the brakes there. So basically, this is a GT braking system now in the V6. Also, by the master cylinder, you can see a couple of lines. That's the fuel line and the evap line from the GT. They're swapped over. On the shock towers, you can see some black insulation. That never was on the GT car. That's also from was never on the V6 car. That came from the GT. And I don't know if it's sound insulation or if it's for heat, because the exhaust manifolds are pretty close to the shock towers there. But anyway, it's easy to swap at this point. I did have to grind off a bracket on the shock tower to make room for that. I didn't need the bracket anymore. It was related to the old evap system. So I put those in place, and then also too, that insulation on the firewall was never there before. That also is from the GT car. And that one I had to modify the firewall slightly to make it work. The way it was installed on this car is it was pushed onto these little tabs here. The V6 car never had those little tabs, so what I did is I just put little bolts through there and drilled and tapped some holes to make that work. Before I close this all in, I'll put a little silicone over those bolts just to protect those holes from rust. But I don't know if that was heat or sound, but either way, hope that makes it into a nicer driving car if it keeps the sound level down a little bit. And I think that's about it for this update. Next job is to take the interior and wiring out of the GT here and move all of that over. The one thing I noticed too I'm going to have to modify is on the firewall you can see where the AC line went through the firewall on this car. It's a slightly different opening than what the V6 has here, so I'm going to have to modify that a little bit, but I'm hoping the rest of it is fairly straightforward and it's just swapping parts over. Hopefully I'll have an update on that soon too. As soon as I do, I'll post that. So thanks for watching this time around.